Hello, and thank you for joining us again this month as we continue talking about the local church. Today's next lesson is going to be, my church is the best church. Now, I'm not convincing you that my church is the best church, but what I am saying is that the church you're a part of, you need to be able to say, my church is the best church. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 1 where we read last week. And I'm going to read these first verses again, and then we're going to continue to the end of chapter 1. We read verse 4 and 5. It said, even before he made the world, God loved us and chose us in Christ to be holy and without fault in his eyes. God decided in advance to adopt us into his own family. And I want you to remember this part that says his own family. He adopted us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Jesus Christ. Now, if we go to the very end of chapter 1, verse 22 says, God has put all things under the authority of Christ and has made him head over all things for the benefit of the church. And the church is his body. It is made full and complete by Christ, who fills all things everywhere with himself. The first thing that stands out to me is God calls us his family. Through what Christ accomplished, we didn't just become his people. We didn't just become his nation. We became his family. He adopted us into his own family. So the first point I want to make is that my church is my family. Remember in Matthew 12, it says in verse 46, as Jesus was speaking to the crowd, his mother and his brothers stood outside, asking to speak to him. Someone told Jesus, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, and they want to speak to you. Jesus asked, who is my mother, and who are my brothers? Then he pointed to his disciples and said, look, these are my mother and brothers. Anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. A kind of shocking thing that Jesus did when his own family was trying to get to him to talk to him. And he asks this crazy question like he often would, who is my mother and who is my brother? And he points to his disciples and he says, these are my mother and my brother and my sister, those that do the will of my Father. So when you look at someone that is next to you at church, someone that you sit next to, someone that you are growing in friendship with or hanging out with or getting to know more, they're not just another person that go to your church. They are your family. It's a person next to you that's also decided to follow Jesus. They're a disciple of Jesus and you're a disciple of Jesus and you go to the same church. And so this is not just a neighbor. It's not just an acquaintance. It's not just a leader. It's not just someone I volunteer with. It's my brother, my sister, and my mother. And I've literally experienced at church how grandmas and mothers have taken the place of a model of a mother or the model of a grandmother. I remember coming down from stage after this one message, and at the end of this service, this grandma approaches me, and she looks straight into my eyes, and she grabs me by my arms, and she acted with me like she was my grandmother. And she looked at me and she said, I don't know what you're going through, but I want you to know that I'm praying for you, that I believe God is going to continue to show himself to you and use you, that God has great plans for your life. And no matter when you feel like giving up, I want you to remember that I am praying for you and standing in the gap. And there's a lot more that she said, and she continued till this day to stand kind of behind the scenes as a pillar for me and pray me through and believe that God is working in my life and continuing to grow in my life. And we experience these family relationships at church when we understand that the people that are next to us are not just someone that I'm doing life with or we go to the same church, but we're following Jesus together. And according to Jesus, it means that this person is a brother, a mother, a father, a sister, a grandmother. If you're lacking these things in your personal life, God can actually give you these things in your church life. If you don't have that role model, if you don't have someone that's pushing you and encouraging you on, God will give you this person at church, because it's not just people you're going to church with, it's family. God calls it family, and we need to call it family too. The second thing I want to talk about is how we see our church. In Ephesians chapter 1, verse 23, we read that the church being his body is full and complete. I think more so we see that it's incomplete and that it's not whole. But God sees the church through Christ full and complete, perfect and whole. And I think we're not being naive and ignoring the imperfections and things that we can improve. I think we're always going to be improving at church. And if the church, someone said if the church is not growing in size, it's always growing in quality. There's always growth in a healthy church. But I think when we see the church as full and complete, we're not ignoring the fact that it's not. We're just really believing. I think it's a position of faith to see what God sees, to see the church that I'm a part of as full and complete. And I think an example that really helped me is with my own family. We have people that are at our house all the time, and you'll hear from people that are around your kids all the time, the things that your kids are not doing good and not behaving and are messing things up. And especially my son, George, he's wild. He has a lot of energy. He can do crazy things. He can, for no reason, hit you, jump on you, want to fight you. And so I will hear from friends, from family, George is crazy. George needs to, you really need to calm him down. You really need to help him and spend more time with him. As a father, even though I see everything that my little Georgie lacks or needs to improve in, I see him perfect at the same time. And I think if my perspective is only negative or I only see the lack or I only see what needs to be better, I don't know if I can help him as well as I could if I see him in a way that is perfect and well. If you're around people that always are saying negative things about the church, you're going to notice that they're not helping the church, and worse, they're not helping you. Sometimes I think people think, man, if only pastor saw everything that's going on in the church, if only this leader saw everything that's going on in the church. I think we see those things, and our leaders and pastors see those things. I think it's a greater strength to see the church complete and full, because then we can be a better blessing and a better help to know the imperfections and lacks, but at the same time, see the church full and complete. So the main takeaways today is the first thing: my church is my family. God adopted me into his family, and the people that are around me are not just people I serve with or volunteer with or lead, but it's my family. Brothers and sisters, fathers, mothers, grandmothers who encourage us. God places us in a family. And the second thing is to see this family, to see my church as perfect. It's okay to see imperfection. It's okay to see things that need to improve. But at the same time, we have to have a healthy view, which is God's view, that the church you're a part of is full and complete. I just pray that you would be encouraged, no matter what is going on in your church or what you're going through. Be refreshed that the church you're a part of is your family, and be encouraged that the church you're a part of is full and complete. And there's so much potential in the place that you're at, and that you'd begin to see that. We hope that this encourages you, and you have a great week.